Warning. Water is yielding and humble, seeking the lowest point. But it's also powerful and dangerous. It erodes, and under pressure it can be deadly. The rain brings life, but the storm floods and the flood kills. Water's both sticky and slippery. It's in every cell in our body. The planet's mostly water, and our bodies are mostly water. Lao Tzu says the highest goodness is in water. The Gospel of John says no one can enter the kingdom of God unless they are born of water and spirit. The Prophet Muhammad says the best charity is giving water. And from the natural sciences, we know that all life that we know of evolved inside of water on our water planet, which is the rare planet that's the right temperature to have all three phases of water. If you don't drink enough, you'll get a headache and your memory will be worse. And the forces of domination, of profit and capital are working to poison our waters, charge us to access our own water, and accumulate our water for their own benefit. But water is us. Water is life. Water is yielding and humble, seeking the lowest point. But the Titan submarine was destroyed by water pressure. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Seriously Wrong podcast. Friends who are mostly made of water, who live on a planet that is most of the surface is covered in water. Welcome to the Seriously Water podcast.
Yeah, this podcast is also mostly made up of water, or at least we're also mostly made of water. Podcasts aren't really made of things, I guess, like information, bytes, all made possible through water in various ways, electricity.
No, you can get into the layers of it, like this podcast. Sure, it's not stored in water, it's not made of water, but every step along the way, water was a necessity in the creation of the computing equipment. The hosts were more than half made of water ourselves. We drink water every day. If we stopped doing that, it would be a major issue for the show.
Yeah, it'd be a big, big problem. Because, yeah, water is necessary for life, for all kinds of life that we know of. You can't have plants, you can't have animals, can't have anything without water. And not only does water cover, I think it's 70% of the surface of the earth, there's also water in the air at all times. You know, you can check how much hydration or humidity. It's like the measure of how much water is in the air. So even when you're not in water, you're kind of constantly swimming in the water that's in the air, breathing it in.
Yeah, water is really important. It's abundant and ever present in our lives. And it came up recently. We were recording our 2-part bonus episode on people who drink their own pee. The idea of doing an episode on water came up then because we're talking about hydration and how great hydration is, how important it is to be hydrated. And there's so many aspects of water that we kind of sleep on. But if you take the microscope to water, if you really get water pilled and recognize what's going on with water, it's very fascinating. I actually had this moment. I was driving my kid to daycare and I'd just been reading about water, the chemical composition of water and water cycles on the planet and stuff. And I realized that everything I could see around me, all the people walking, all the buildings, I had this water pilled moment where I was like, water allows this all to happen. And you just take that for granted. Like my ability to be here is based on the water that I drink, but also all the plant life, all the human beings I can see. Without water, they'd all be fucked. These buildings exist because of that life, but also water's used in the process of putting together the materials to make buildings. It's like water is just everywhere. Every good thing in the world has to thank water when they're doing their acceptance speech for how great they are. Like water is so present.
Tragedy that so many people leave water off the list. But it's like, you might have heard of the water cycle. It evaporates from oceans and lakes. It's in the air. It falls down, becomes maybe snow on mountaintops or becomes parts of glaciers, and water sort of cycling through the environment. But that cycle is also related to nutrients moving through the environment. Like our body can't get nutrients out of food without using water for our metabolism. Nutrients in the soil are able to be absorbed into plants because of water. Rains and rivers and stuff move minerals and nutrients around. The carbon cycle is also intimately linked to the water cycle. The amount of carbon that can be stored in soil is intricately related to how much water is in the soil. If it dries out, then carbon is more likely to be offset into the atmosphere. So declining wetlands causes increased carbon in the atmosphere. All these things are like intricately linked together through our bodies, through the environment around us, to this molecule, this stuff, this liquid.
It's a cliche. The planet's mostly water. We're mostly water. And, water is essential for all life that we know of. It's a cliche, but the reasons why that is the case are pretty interesting. Like we talk about moving minerals around here. And part of the reason for that is that everything mixes with water. It's called sometimes a universal solvent. So compared to a lot of materials, water can carry and mix with a lot more things than your average material, even your average liquid material.
Yeah, it's part of the reason too why pollution in water can be such a big problem, because it's like it really easily soaks up pollutants that can harm people and then spreads them out through the environment.
Yeah, including what do they call them? The forever chemicals, the post-industrial, like oil-derived substances from hairsprays and stuff that just exist in the water cycle in perpetuity until we can figure some way to get them out. Or microplastics. Water is one of the ways that microplastics gets into our bodies. Recent studies showing there's microplastics in the placentas of pregnant mothers. There's microplastics in the testicles of everyone that they tested.
Another crazy thing about water is it has a really high heat capacity. So the fact that our planet is livable is partially due to the huge amount of water in the atmosphere and in the oceans and stuff. It prevents as much seasonal temperature fluctuations as you would expect, because water is a kind of heat sink. When the air temperature is cooler, it'll let heat off, and when it's warmer, it'll absorb heat. So it helps to moderate the temperature of the entire planet.
Yeah, its temperature is more stable than other substances, and it takes more heat to warm up water than an equivalent amount of heat energy would take to warm up most substances. And water's got a few different tricks to maintain its temperature, one of which is that when the surface of water evaporates, it creates a vacuum. Like, part of the reason that sweat cools you is your sweat evaporates, creating a vacuum, which is like a little tiny fan blowing on the surface of your skin. So that same dynamic happens on the surface of water, creating a little vacuum. A little tiny microscopic fan blows on the surface of water when it gets too hot and helps moderate its temperature and prevent it from turning gaseous too quickly. And one of the other unique features of water, there's other substances that do this, but none of which are as plentiful as water, is that ice floats. When water becomes frozen, it becomes less dense and expands. So ice floats on top of water. And this is another way that water has a stabilizing temperature effect, is because the surface of the lake freezes. It insulates the water underneath from the cold. So it requires more cold to freeze towards the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, it allows for marine environments to exist under the ice, which wouldn't be possible in the opposite scenario.
If lakes and oceans froze from the bottom up, then you wouldn't be able to have seabed surface life the way that we do, which is also important for the evolution of animals in general.
And human societies, likewise, are deeply interconnected to their relationship with water. Like, you can't have agriculture without some type of water control, without irrigation systems of some kind, whether that's like, capturing a bunch of water and then using that for irrigation, or diverting rivers and streams, or the ability to control water is essential, especially if you want to have larger settlements of people living together in a dense environment. But even in like a hunter-gatherer type society, dealing with the water situation is one thing that requires you to cooperate with the other people around you, because if you're all living around this same stream, there has to be agreements about like, okay, you're not going to shit upriver from where we're drinking and cleaning ourselves. And it's a common resource that needs to be managed with the other people around you.
So yeah, like the earliest human settlements, they're all in the fertile floodplains around major water sources. And then also even for hunter-gatherers before the advent of like mass agriculture, a lot of the archaeological records that we have over time, they're near waterways. There's like 40,000-year-old sites of like the shells of shellfish that are all like compressed together and fossilized. Like it was the place where the humans were all putting their empty shrimp shells and they piled together and
Yeah, shucking the empty stuff out. Another reason settlements on massive bodies of water has been a thing throughout a lot of history is that, partially because of the ubiquity and the unique properties of water, it's also a way to transport yourself once you invent boats that has like an extremely low amount of friction. It's just like a lot less energy intensive to move through water compared to almost anything else, because of the glide level and the way you float in water and the way you glide. It's like just way less friction than, trying to drive on anything else.
I don't have this in front of me, but if I remember right from previous study that I did, the earliest known boats that have been preserved that we know of are from about 12,000 years ago. And they were preserved because they were like in a bog, which has better at preserving things. Like even people's bodies get preserved really well in bogs. They call them bog bodies. They don't dry out like mummies and they stay preserved for long periods of time. So 12,000 is like the earliest one we know, 10,000 BC. But when you think about what boats are likely to be made of up until the time that we figured out that we could actually make boats out of metal, which comes after the invention of metals and the invention of all that stuff, which is later, it's wood. Wood degrades, wood is broken, rafts fall apart. So it's unclear how much earlier we would have boats. I would tend to personally think that we had some version of rafts and boats in various forms for a really long time. You notice a
log floats and you're like, oh, I could use this vine to tie multiple logs to each other. And then you have a raft. And then, there's not a big gap between that to be like, oh, what if we, curved it up a little bit? Or boats, proto boats, rafts, things like it's the kind of thing that I think every group of humans would think of at some point.
Yeah, but even if you don't have that, if you think about you think about areas of the world where you have lots of trees, vegetation, animals, and so on, and how could humans navigate through these areas with the thicket of bushes and trees and so on? The easiest path is going to be along the shorelines of rivers.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that same level of dense vegetation. So I think even in the absence of boats, riverways, beaches, and so on are going to be a very important and primary mode of early human disbursement and transportation.
So, water's tied up in everything, the planet, human history, human biology, all biology that we know of, and a whole lot more. It's big. It's everything. It's in everything. It's part of everything.
We owe water a big thanks as human beings and as a podcast. And the Seriously Wrong podcast wanted to honor water this week by exploring and talking about the water pill, both the biological and chemical aspects of water, the evolutionary history and civilizational aspects of water, and even the metaphorical and spiritual aspects of water. Because another aspect of water too is that the amount of metaphorical weight that water is given across different cultures is really large. There's like tons and tons of different prominent water metaphors, especially you start talking about rain, ocean, rivers. So in a way, our understanding of water is encoded in the spiritual and meaning space, this metaphorical space, but then also we totally take it for granted. And I think that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, and not to mention the political aspects of water, like wars over access to water throughout history, water grabs for land to get water rights, the individual people's right to their water, and powerful interests gobbling that up for themselves, whether that be like kings and stuff of old times or modern day mega corporations like Nestle draining aquifers in California during a drought. Because of how central water is to everything, it's plays a huge part in political life as well. So yeah, it's like it's part of everything. It touches on everything. And yeah, we're going to encompass and cover all of it 100%, all episodes.
Yeah, in full detail in every aspect. You'll leave this knowing everything there is to know about every aspect of water in every way. And that is our promise to you. And if at the end of the episode, we'll check in and see how we did on that.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Well Hydrated or Dried Out, the Game on the Seriously Wrong podcast where we use well hydrated as a metaphor for something being good and dried out as a metaphor for something being bad.
So yeah, we're just going to name a bunch of stuff and then rate it on that scale. Up first is water bottles.
So, I generally say that water bottles are well hydrated, in that water bottles are a great way to drink water, and being hydrated is important. But there are some caveats to that, which is I don't think all water bottles are created equal. For example, some water bottles include microplastics, stuff like BPA. That's not good.
A good, well-made water bottle doesn't have any weird nooks or crevices where things are going to get trapped and bacteria is going to grow. That's super well hydrated. If you're talking about disposable plastic bottles for mass-produced, selling tap water back to people from Nestle or whatever, that's not so good. That's dried out. Yeah.
It's a desert.
Absolutely.
Next up, water beds. Hydrated or dried out?
Now, I like the idea of water beds, but my understanding is that in practice, they're pretty dried out. They're not the most comfortable kind of bed. If you get a leak, it can cause big problems. Water's great for a lot of things, but bed, I don't think is the best application.
I know that it's very heavy. I think there might be better ways to have a bed.
Next up, waterfall. I would say hydrated. Love a good waterfall.
Yeah, I think well hydrated. When you think of what is beautiful in the world, say, bring me a picture that shows the beauty of nature. 9 photos out of 10 is going to include a waterfall. So that's very well hydrated.
Definitely.
Next up here, watermark. A watermark.
Watermark. This is a tough one because I think a well-placed watermark can be a great thing. It can be like a signature of sorts. But what I primarily associate watermarks with is like annoying logos on videos.
Yeah, I could see a use. There's a time and a place. It's really tied up in intellectual property, which I'm not wild about, but I also understand why people rely on intellectual property and watermarks under a political and economic system where their basic needs are not taken care of, and large firms or dishonest people can take advantage of your work. I think sometimes it's dried out, but it's somewhat hydrated.
Yeah, it's right in the middle. How about waterproof? Waterproof. Now, I would say that's really hydrated. Waterproof.
It's well hydrated for sure. I mean, we love hydration and water as much as anyone, but there's a time and a place for water, and there's a time and a place where you want no water, and that's where waterproof comes in handy.
Exactly.
Next up, Watergate. Watergate, the American political scandal.
Right. I would say that is pretty dried up. It's not good to have your political leadership engaged in that kind of corruption and scandal.
I mean, I guess it's telling, too, is that Watergate became a meme, and then future scandals started being known as Blankgate. It could have just as easily been the case that it would be water something, but they kept the gate. They got rid of the water, and that's because we all know, obviously, that water is wonderful and doesn't deserve to be dragged through the mud like that.
Absolutely. Water closet, which is a term for the toilet, a bathroom. And I would say it's hella hydrated. It's great to have a place to use a toilet and have your waste flushed away. Big fan.
I'm in favor of bathrooms. I've said that for a long time. I'm not going to change that today. This is a well-hydrated idea. And finally, our last term here, Waterfowl. Waterfowl. So makes me think of ducks.
Is that like all water birds or something? I don't know exactly what it means, but I'm in favor of it. It's well hydrated. It's part of biodiversity. Whatever is contained within it, again, I'm not sure, but I am sure that it's a thumbs up. Well hydrated.
Yeah, waterfowl, it includes duck, geese, swans, a type of bird called screamers from South America, and the magpie goose, which is actually not a regular type of goose. It's from a different family of birds. So yeah, I think these are all very well hydrated. Yeah, biodiversity, nailed it with that. I mean, the more different, beautiful, wonderful animals in the world, the better as far as I'm concerned. And feeding ducks at the pond, that's a beloved childhood memory. I have to say, well hydrated, locking it in.
Well hydrated. So that is all the time we have this week on well hydrated or dried out.
And obviously some waterfowl can be jerks, but I don't think we should write off multiple families of bird entirely based on the individual behaviors of rude geese or ducks.
See you next time.
Welcome back to another droplet of truth.
Did you know that water almost never exists in its pure form? Because it is such a great solvent, any water we interact with day to day that exists in nature or coming from our taps is actually a solution of water that contains dissolved minerals, salts, gases like dissolved oxygen that fish breathe with their gills. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's like a soup. And while distilled water is the closest thing we can get to actually pure water for most consumers, even that is just a more pure water to a certain detectable limit defined by certain agencies. Actually, real pure water, which is sometimes called ultra-pure water, is used in certain industrial applications like semiconductor fabrication, photovoltaics, has pharmaceutical applications. To create ultra-pure water, you used advanced purification techniques to create even more distilled water that still technically, to some very, very small level, will have some things dissolved in it because it's basically impossible not to. Drinking ultra-pure water is not generally recommended because while it is safe in small amounts, people do report that the taste is not the best. And because this water is so pure and is such a great solvent, it can actually leach necessary salts, minerals from our body. So rather than replenishing the things that our body needs, it can leach them out of us, meaning it's not a good source of hydration.
And that was a droplet of truth. Water, in addition to being a delicious and hydrating beverage, also has political dimensions. According to the World Health Organization, in 2022, about 25% of the world's population lacks consistent access to clean drinking water, over 2 billion people. And the World Health Organization UNICEF Joint Monitoring Program for Water Supply and Sanitation reported that 663 million people did not have access to improved sources of drinking water, and more than 2.4 billion lacked access to basic sanitation services in 2015. Another aspect of water we didn't talk about is how it's used in cleaning. When you're cleaning yourself, you use water and soap. And
to clean yourself, to clean your clothes, you need to use water. To clean dishes, you use water. Mopping the floors, wiping the walls, pretty much all cleaning. I guess you can dust without water.
Yeah, you could have like an entirely solvent-based, or vinegar is also used in cleaning sometimes.
Right. But yeah, even when I use vinegar, I usually mix it with some water. Vinegar is mostly water. It's water and something acid, acetic acid or something.
Sounds right.
It's funny, off mic earlier, you were like, so many times you think of things like, oh, that's kind of like water. And then you're like, oh, wait, that is just mostly water.
Yeah,
it just happened again.
Encountering the unique features of water, the many unique features we've talked about. And you're like, wow, man, water really is like that. It is both sticky and slippery at the same time, now that it's pointed out to me. And there isn't really anything else like that. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, I thought of another thing. Oh, no, actually, that's just water plus other stuff. It's like it's all water is just the whole fluid world of human life.
Yeah, like those water TikTokers, the water talk, who are like, I'm making a water. And then they put, a bit of water and ice in there and then mix in all this other stuff. And people are like, that's not water. It is water. They're wiser than we think.
They're piggybacking on the features of water to creating water-esque things that could go
Yeah.
nowhere without water.
It's essential to all of it. But yeah, there's like the political dimensions of water and who has control over water and the right to clean water, because the water system touches on every aspect of our lives, our health, our ability to clean things, our ability to whisk our poo and pee away and have nice clean water coming out of the tap. It touches on like every aspect of society. Contaminants in water is a political issue. Declining aquifer levels, groundwater levels, water quality, water treatment, water management within cities, who controls the water, who owns the water, who gets paid when we pump water out of the ground that's been there for, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. Who has the right to say that's my water and like I'm the one who gets paid when we pump that out? All these like political questions are tied up in water, and the way it presents itself, like within communities and around the globe, can be really exploitative of different groups. Like you pointed out the UN numbers on the number of places where there is no clean access to drinking water. And if you look at a lot of those places, a lot of those countries, what you find is that international corporations based in, Europe, United States, Canada, etc., own a lot of the land in those areas, and they're pumping out the water that used to serve the local communities, and now farmers have their lands drying up because that water's being pumped out and used by mega corporations.
Property claims over the natural world have a sort of an inherent absurdity to them across the board, but it's kind of an extremist proprietarian view that you can like own a patch of the jungle despite being inherited. You own all of the rocks underneath, you own all the air above, you own all the water that you find there. But that's like the legal system that we find ourselves in for some reason. The specifics of water make it even more absurd in that it's like waters are in these water cycles, so it's like water's coming and leaving plots of land.
Yeah, if there's a river going through your land, you just own the water. The minute it hits your property line, you own it. And then when it leaves your property line, you no longer own it. Or like what other property works like that? Like it doesn't make any sense. I think there's actually like more detailed rules around water rights that can be associated or not associated with, like, different states and laws and things exist, that there's a variety of ways to set up property rights in relation to water. But yeah, in America especially, there's this one book, Cadillac Desert, that I was skimming, reading parts of, where they talk about a lot of the early American days in the American West, especially. There was this perception of like an unlimited amount of water. And so water rights associated with property rights were very permissive. And a lot of those laws exist in Texas for a lot longer than other places. So you have all these like billionaires buying up land and then selling the water back to the city because their purchase of land gave them the right to sell water from the aquifer below them, even though it expands, it's like a fluid. So it's kind of like oil rights too. It's like, there will be blood, I drink your milkshake. It's like the idea that, yeah, you could just put a straw into the earth and suck up everything because you own the land on top of it is a weird idea, because it's giving you the right to more than just your land. It's like all this underground stuff that is nearby to it, drainage.
Yeah, that also connects to the issue of like groundwater depletion and like fossil groundwater, which is like very old groundwater. Like a third of agriculture on the earth uses that. And these are like reserves of water that are finite, that have an eventual end to them. Mm-hmm. And a third of human agriculture is using non-renewable sources of water that will have to be replaced someday if we want to keep on producing agriculture at the same rate. It reminds me of, I can't remember where I heard this, but there's this, it's kind of like an economic metaphor for the natural world, but I think there's something really true about it in general when it comes to like the depletion of the planet, but water in particular, which is that human beings, the institutions, these corporations and governments, we're treating something that's actually an inheritance as if it's a source of income. So like we're withdrawing from our reserves of fresh water, which is like a serious minority, a very small minority. Accessible fresh water on planet Earth is a very small amount of water compared to the overall amount of water on Earth. And we're treating that as if it's a paycheck that's coming in each week, instead of treating it as we've been gifted, this big inheritance that needs to be like stewarded and managed. And what happens if you run out of water? It's like you can have agriculture collapse, sanitation and cleanliness, also issues with dehydration. And like you could have a scenario where a region of the planet no longer sustains crops as it once did. So there's a food shortage, and the only source of water that people have has to be like imported in from private water companies that are pulling it out of the fossil groundwater of other parts of the planet.
Yeah.
Exploiting the local populations there.
Yeah, the way that we're burning through our freshwater supplies on the planet is like completely unsustainable, like so many of the things that we're doing. But yeah, like it's not just aquifers that are depleting, groundwater levels depleting. The overall levels of rivers and streams around the planet is going down. Many smaller streams and rivers are drying up. They're spending more of the year dry, less flow going through them. The entire water system, because it's all one system, we're pulling so much out of our freshwater systems and not allowing it to replenish. And the way we're disposing of it, a lot of it ends up in the ocean, mixing into the saltwater supply. So we're literally like taking this fresh water and putting it into the ocean.
Yeah, part of the reason the ocean is so salty is because there is so much salt in the ocean that there's enough salt to fully saltify the whole ocean. And there's more salt where that came from. So when you add fresh water to it, it turns to salt water because there's a lot of salt.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference because, there's so much more of it. It doesn't make a big difference.
There's always more salt, baby.
Yeah, so we can't treat it like this endless resource. We have to think of it more like, you're saying an inheritance that we have to manage and steward. Think of it as a store that we can borrow from, but that we should return to and be good stewards of the water in the meantime as we're making use of it. Because, there's like so many downstream effects from all that too. When you have rivers drying up, you have fewer wetlands, which is the area around streams and rivers where it's like a whole unique ecosystem in and of itself. When you have wetlands drying up, you have further biodiversity loss. You have topsoil being washed away, which causes more carbon to be released into the atmosphere. Because the ground isn't storing carbon, it's not wet anymore, it's desertification. All this stuff feeds into one another in these like feedback loops.
Yeah, and the loss of these things, like the mismanagement of our water resources, is tied up in the politics of class domination, hierarchical society, and an extremist view of private property that allows small groups of rich people to get much wealthier and build incredible amounts of wealth by exploiting other people. And that dynamic, that social dynamic, is present in like pretty much every example of misuse of our water supply that we're able to find here. I mean, there's some sort of kind of edge case like, well, I mean, you can blame them for it. It's weird how we pee and poo into clean, fresh, drinkable water, if you think about it.
Yeah, we put all this work into purifying it just to pee and poo in it and then have to purify it again.
Yeah, and so there's ways you can build, they call them gray water systems. Like the shower water goes into the toilet, and it's like you have a multi-phase system. And I think that's definitely superior. Yeah, it's kind of weird knowing that 25% of the planet can't consistently get access to safe, clean drinking water. And then in North America, in the United States and Canada and Europe, we're just peeing right into it and then flushing it away. That's odd. Or dropping a log in it.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then, just flushing it out into the ocean, basically.
I guess it's sort of the fault of the rich anyways, in the way that they've captured so many different elements of our society that we're not functioning as a rational organism, because we're not functioning as a rational human meta-organism because so much of our time and effort and energy is taken up in these systems of profit making and hierarchy and so on, that you can indirectly say, well, the rich is like, why do we piss and poo into clean fresh water in the developed world? Well, it's because of the rich ultimately. And I think that argument can be made, and I tend to believe that's probably true. But it's more obvious in cases like, we're talking about the buying
Right.
up of lands and having access to all the water underneath. Or, there's like an incentive for private, like drinking water companies that sell bottled water. It would be in their interests if people did not have trustworthy tap water in more parts of the world. Like anytime tap water becomes untrustworthy to drink somewhere, it's more money in their bank account.
Yeah, people run out to buy bottled water.
That means that their interests are just structurally at odds with the interests of free humanity without any maliciousness in their heads. And that is a result of the private property relations, the hierarchical society, and so on.
The other reason that the property system's kind of at the base of a lot of these problems is that it takes the control for what we're doing with our water away from the people, away from a democratic populace making collective decisions over collective resources, a collective inheritance, and putting it in the hands of wealthy people. So if they think that the very best thing to do with water is to suck as much of it out of the ground as possible, as quickly as possible, to bottle it up or to sell it to municipalities, then that's what's going to happen. It's taking something that we should all have a right to, this collective inheritance, and putting the power to control it in the hands of a very small group of people.
Yeah, and I think if we let them have their way, then we're on a path towards, a future where people say, well, we need to have affordable water, which means it's no more than 30% of your income. That's the future that these creeps want. We're paying 40% of our income on water. People complaining, oh, we got to get the government to guarantee it's affordable at 30%.
Yeah, I saw in one of the books I was reading, they used the tragedy of the commons as a way to say, oh, this is what's wrong with the water system. People, it's just free in their taps, or, you pay a little water bill. So nobody thinks about the value of water. But it's like the amount of water that people are drinking or using to clean themselves or take a bath or even poo and pee in the toilet, which is pretty wasteful. It like pales in comparison to the amount of water that's being used by industry to do all sorts of things like agribusiness, like power companies, data centers. Now, pretty much every production process uses water in various ways. So like, if we're thinking about who's wastefully using water and not thinking about the price because it's heavily subsidized, we don't have to talk about like poor people being charged 30% of their income for water or whatever.
Yeah, there's also just like a huge amount of waste from infrastructure that is like needs repairs and is not getting repaired.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's like millions and millions and millions of liters of fresh drinkable water is just being spilled out of old
recently
pipes.
Treated. Yeah, I think I saw 16%. I can't remember if that was like America or some particular state or study. I don't remember, but yeah.
The commonality is it's a lot.
It's a lot of water. It's just being pumped away. Yeah. And the infrastructure of the cities too. Like we've talked about car-centric infrastructure and covering everything with pavement and then directing the water into sewers and then directing those sewers into waterways that usually end up back in oceans is another way that we're depleting groundwater levels and not caring about this resource that we could be using in much better ways. Hey, welcome to the company barbecue.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Grab some food, grab some water.
Oh, water? Plain water? You don't have any juice? You don't have any beer? You don't have any soda?
No, we thought...
You don't have any diet soda?
Water.
You don't have any sports drinks?
Healthier. There's a slice of lemon if you want.
You don't have any kombucha? You don't have any...
Come on, water's great. It's filtered water. It tastes great.
Do you have like a flavored soda water? It doesn't even have to be the sweet. I'll settle for a carbonated...
It's just water. We just have water.
Oh,
it's great.
Oh, sorry, that makes me sick to my... I hate water. I just can't drink it. The taste, it's just like,
the taste is pretty
Gatorade,
neutral.
Diet Gatorade.
Unless it's like really
soda.
bad tap water or something. It tastes pretty good, right? And this is good.
Yeah, not for me. I'll bathe in it, sure. I'll swim in it, all right, but drink it. It's disgusting, dude. Here, look, underneath my shirt, I'm wearing a shirt that says, I hate drinking plain water. It's gross. Brackets, I want beer or soda.
Well, you're free to go get a different drink and bring it here.
You gotta have cans of Pepsis around here or something for me, right? I mean, guys, you're with me, right? Hey, we hate water, right?
I mean,
we want something real to drink.
I mean, everyone's just sipping their ice cold water.
Soda.
No one's joining your chant, so...
I didn't have a chance to really get it going. I don't think we can... Guys, excuse me. Soda. Okay, yeah.
I think you should change your stance on this. Give it a shot. Have a nice ice cold drink, slice of lemon. You're going to like it. You're going to think,
No,
I was wrong.
I will never, ever do that under any circumstances. Nothing could ever make me do that. I don't care, if the heavens opened up. I don't care if I'm visited by 3 ghosts in the night. I'm never, ever, ever going to drink plain water. And it's disgusting. You're forcing on me. It's a harassment issue. It's an employment issue at this point. I'm never going to do that.
Hey everybody, I'm Sprinkle, the water fairy.
Oh my God.
Did I hear someone being a Debbie Downer about water?
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm not going to drink it. I don't care that you're a magical aquatic being.
Well, I'm gonna send you to the water dimension for 10,000 years to be soaked, dunked, and bathed in the deep knowledge of water.
No, I'm not going to do
Starting
that just like
now.
70% of your body is water.
on high surface.
High heat cells. Literally, if you're dehydrated,
water make you weird
both life and destruction and religions of the world.
I understand now. I will take a drink of water, please. Thank you, Sprinkle.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Sprinkle.
Yeah.
To see that. You
Change
love to
man.
see a guy change.
So beautiful.
For the better.
Well, looks like my work here is done. Sprinkle!
Goodbye, Sprinkle. And thank you so much. Thank you for how you've opened my eyes to water truth.
And now it is time for another droplet of truth.
Did you know that water has dozens of anomalous properties that are unlike other substances or behave in ways that are not expected based on other trends? And this is summarized by Professor Martin Chaplin on his website Water Structure and Science, which we'll link, but I'll just give a top level. It's really fascinating. Some of it goes above my head, but the most obvious ones are that ice expands and then therefore floats, and that, liquid water has a really high heat capacity, a surface tension, etc. But water also, compared to other similar compounds, has an unusually high boiling point and melting point. Ice has more different types of stable crystalline structures than other substances. There's 20 types of ice, and supercooled temperatures of water can actually turn solid ice back into a supercooled liquid that will freeze if it heats up. Very unusual stuff. Surface water is denser than the rest of the body of water. The speed of sound in water is anomalous. It behaves differently than expected. Water vapor takes up over 1,600 times as much space as liquid water does. Other substances peak out around 900 times as much. Under high pressures, instead of water getting denser and denser, at a certain point, water molecules start to move apart at high pressures. So there's like 75 anomalies of water that Professor Martin Chaplin summarizes on his website. To a layperson, understanding some of these graphs and stuff is going to take a little bit of supporting work, but it's really fascinating. It is definitely true that water is anomalous in dozens and dozens of ways, the most prominent of which we've already talked about in this episode.
And that was another droplet of truth. All right, and I think it's just around this next bend. Yeah, there it is. That's the stream I was talking about. Isn't it beautiful?
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I'd love to go for a dip in that moving stream. And it's just something peaceful about it.
Yeah, that trickling sound and the cool wetness. Oh, it's just great.
Yeah. You want to hop in this beautiful moving stream and talk about the symbolic, metaphorical, and spiritual dimensions of water for a bit?
Absolutely, yeah. Getting down to my swim trunks, getting ready to take a dip. Ooh, that's cold.
Yeah, it feels cold at first, but you get used to it. And actually, I think it's good for you to get some cold exposure, isn't it? One of the unique things about water is it doesn't heat up as easily as other things, which you can notice on a hot day like this, and this water's still so cold.
Yeah. It's recently melted ice rushing downhill from the mountain peaks up there.
Yeah, and I guess, the water cycle in nature, the way it works, it evaporates from the ocean, turns to clouds, gets rained down, sometimes frozen to ice, or so cool. I mean, I'm talking about the scientific, biological, and ecological dimensions of water, but we're supposed to be talking about the spiritual, symbolic, and metaphorical dimensions of water. I'm just hardcore atheist type. I
Yeah.
can't help myself.
Sometimes it's hard to separate them. I was learning about the factual basis of like dams and why dams can be so damaging to ecosystems because it prevents the natural flow of different life forms. It can create these dead zones in the water. And, you can think about it scientifically, but when I think about it in a more metaphorical sense, and yeah, I'm an atheist too. We met in an atheist club. We're both atheists, but when I think about even metaphorically, say, our Mother Earth, and we're like blocking up her arteries with these dams, and it causes all these health problems to the ecology, something about it feels deeper, more spiritual, religious. And I don't know, maybe it's just conditioning. I grew up Catholic and they was baptized. A lot of Christians baptize people sometimes in a river, sometimes with a little flick of water on the head.
That's a big thing in like a ton of religions, is the sort of like water, not just for literal cleansing and cleaning, but for like a type of spiritual cleansing. So like in the Christian, sort of the biblical framework, it's associated with rebirth or forgiveness. But also one of the canonical texts of Hinduism, the Rig Veda, says, "Waters, you are the ones who bring us life force. May we bathe in your essence to cleanse sin and sorrow." So there's kind of an overlapping idea there of cleansing sin through water. Actually, in a lot of places around the world, they treat especially particular big rivers as like sacred or religious, or being symbolic of gods, or being living entities themselves that need to be protected or stood up for. And I guess that's probably because, a lot of these rivers are seen as bringing life, the ability to grow crops and marine life to eat and so on.
And yeah, it makes sense. If you go without water long enough, people experience droughts. They know, like, all the plants die, you go thirsty, start to shrivel up. It's not good. So yeah, I think there's a reason water's central to a lot of cultural and religious traditions throughout time. In ancient Greek philosophy, there was this idea that water was the sole primary substance that existed before everything else. And you find that in the Bible too. Like on the first day, there's waters and God separates the waters and creates light.
Yeah, and the Quran says that Allah has created all living things from water.
Even in things like Freudian psychology, they talk about an oceanic feeling, which is a sense of being one and connected to the universe, like sort of dissolving yourself into the ocean of nature of all.
It makes me think too, like just from the scientific framework, like we know that the evolution of our ancestors occurred within the ocean, and the ocean was kind of like, in a way, this chaotic and primordial place from which the ancestors of humanity and then eventually humanity came out of. It's kind of fascinating to see that concept show up in world religions and spirituality in another form. Yeah, it's just fascinating to see that overlap between the science and the spirituality here.
Yeah, in a Taoist framework, I think they have 7 primordial elements, if I remember right. There's like water, wood, metal, fire. What water symbolizes has to do, again, with a lot of its very real properties, which is water is something that's very pliable. It's very yielding, as in it will flow around anything. You can split it easily. It'll take the shape of whatever it's in. But at the same time, it is extremely powerful. A stream can cut a deep canyon into rocks. You look at the Grand Canyon and you're like, oh, that was formed by water because it's so incredibly strong.
If you fall far enough onto water, the impact can be deadly if you're not in the right position. Because, yeah, once it's distributed across the surface and the surface tension, the pressure is really great. So, yeah, it's got this kind of paradoxical, and this is a scientific thing, it's got this kind of paradoxical thing where it's both, sticky and slippery, it's both yielding and moving, but it's also very strong and damaging. And some of the functions of those things are actually intertwined scientifically, because when you think about like erosion, part of the cause of erosion comes from water pressure, but it also comes from the stickiness of the water molecule in picking other things up as it moves. So the stickiness to itself is what causes the surface tension to be so strong in water, so much stronger than like pretty much every other liquid. But that stickiness can also help pick up and break apart sediment and distribute things into the water. Like water mixes with everything. And that despite being kind of like a chaotic, yielding process, has this powerful secondary impacts at the same time that, yeah, water can eventually, over time, break through stone.
Yeah, they say water damage to a house is one of the worst things that you can get because it's so insidious. You don't notice it at first, and then it's like way more damage than you thought happened kind of behind the scenes there because of the way it seeps into things. And yeah, water has a lot of those weird dualities too. Like we're talking about a lot of the mythology around water being this life-giving thing, you know, bring down the rain so the crops can grow kind of conception of water. But water also has this dual flip side nature to it where it can also be a harbinger of destruction. You know, you have floods, you have storms, typhoons, tsunamis. These are all things where water can not only kill people, but literally destroy an entire city. You know, one of the greatest threats we face on the planet right now is rising sea levels. And that can, again, take out an entire city. It's like water, it's life-giving, yes, but it's also, if you're not working with it, if you're not prepared for it, you know, you don't want to be out in the ocean unprepared. You're going to drown.
I feel like the water pill spiritually here is just fascinating. I mean, like, Jesus turns water into wine and walks on water. It's said that the Prophet Muhammad said the best charity is giving water. There was the Lakota phrase, water is life, became popularized during the Standing Rock protests around access to water. Variations on this theme they're just found on every continent. You know, there's African traditions of spiritual dimensions of water, South American, North American, all over in all these different ways. These spiritual and metaphorical dimensions of water is this paradoxical thing where it's both judgment, but it's also salvation. It's both inaction or yielding, but it's powerful and destructive, and it's neat. I'm actually fascinated that the intersymbolic interpretation of water across all these cultures, I feel like I just want to hear this explored more.
Yeah, I feel like I've just scratched the surface thinking about this and looking into it. You know, you could do a deep dive on the way water is seen in every single individual culture that you can think of, and it could be a lifetime of work. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And it just triggers something in me. Like, I mean, we're in a stream. You hear the stream rushing past. You feel the water on you. There's something calming about it. There's something just nice. Like, there's a reason people put ocean sounds on their headphones. I think the way water affects us psychologically, there's something deep going on there too.
Yeah, and another thing that just occurred to me is you can see your reflection in water. So that must, you know, throughout the development of human cultures, you know, pre the sort of manufacture of mirrors.
Yeah, right.
Still water would be the place to understand what you look like. Adds another fascinating dimension to this.
Yeah.
In Buddhism, they use water as a metaphor for like stillness of the mind, to like be reflective and not reacting and so on.
Yeah, in meditation, a lot of times they'll talk about a thought as a ripple in the water, and like it's okay, you know, the thought happens, but what you want to do is just let the ripple happen and then die out and let the water reach a level equilibrium again, rather than chasing thought with thought, creating more and more ripples and letting it spiral out. If you're thinking about it in terms of this placid body of water, you can sort of visualize the calm mind state.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Well, my fingers are starting to get a little bit pruny. Fascinating thing our bodies do. Do you want it? Maybe let's step out of here and dry off. And
Oh yeah, I guess so. You know, I'm such a water baby. I could sit here all day, but yeah, we got other places to hike too.
we'll definitely pop in on the way back. Another quick swim.
Along the lines of the incentives that disalign public interest and companies that make their living selling water, private water companies or multinational, like your Nestle's of the world, your bottled water companies. There's a tension there between public free access to water and their interests. When there's the Flint water crisis, Nestle all of a sudden was like, increase production because we got to make sure we can cover this water crisis that's going to make us rich. The government's going to buy all this water from us. The same is true, like anytime there's a water crisis in a well-off area that can afford bottled water, then these companies make a ton of money. People involved in these companies have said things like this publicly. This comes from the book Bottled and Sold, which is a critique of the bottled water industry. These next couple quotes. Shortly before he was made chairman of PepsiCo's North American Beverage and Food Division, some guy named Robert S. Morrison declared, "The biggest enemy is tap water. We're not against water. It has its place. We think it's good for irrigation and cooking." The same year, Susan Wellington, president of Quaker Oats Company's United States Beverage Division, candidly told industry analysts, "When we're done, tap water will be relegated to showers and washing dishes." So from a business perspective, yeah, it makes sense. It's true.
It's a way higher return on investment if you're bottling water and selling it to people than if you are the person who owns the pipes to the aquifer that the municipal government is paying. Or even if the municipal government has privatized their water industry and they've contracted it out to you in full, neither of those are as profitable as selling bottled water. So from a profit-seeking perspective, it makes a lot of sense to try and convert as much of that into bottled water as you possibly can.
Yeah, but from like a human interest and decency and just even like on a practical basis, it is absolutely bonkers to organize your society this way. Like some of these companies, they're literally taking tap water from one jurisdiction. They're putting it inside plastic bottles. They're loading up a truck or a train completely full of it. Water's pretty heavy, so that takes a lot of energy to move that. And then they're shipping tap water from one jurisdiction to sell it at like a 5,000% markup in another jurisdiction that has essentially free running tap water anywhere you go. The amount of energy and effort that goes into that because of this, they get a big return on investment when they do that. It's like, that is no way to organize a rational society, especially one that has the threat of, say, water crisis affecting 25% of the population.
Yeah, and the issue there isn't that we're treating water like too much of common property and everyone's just drawing as much as they want. It's like, no, specific big companies like Nestle are given property rights over the water, and that doesn't lead them to be good stewards like the theory of the tragedy of the commons would lead you to think. It leads them to exploit it as quickly as possible to get as much profit as possible out of it.
Yeah, and if we're putting a price on water, like why would you ever put a price on, a family with children that needs a basic amount of water to drink and stay hydrated and so on? You're going to give the same per unit price to that family that you give to a multinational corporation that's involved in a high-level water flipping scheme.
Yeah, or even give
cost.
Give the company even better rates because they're buying so much water.
Yeah, exactly.
They
you got to
get
give
subsidies.
them the bulk benefit. Yeah, and they're bringing jobs as well. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. And for the record, a lot of what this rhetoric leads to is municipal water systems being privatized and people saying, oh, they'll handle it better. It'll be more effective, more efficient. What they usually end up doing is laying a bunch of people off. The water ends up becoming even more expensive than it has been before. This has happened a bunch of places where they tried to privatize water, like UK, Rome, France, Germany. There's stories of this all over the world of just privatizing a water system and then the price is actually going up, service getting worse. It's what happens when you privatize most things.
Yeah, it's the general principle of privatization is that you get worse service, higher fees, worse work protections, and you end up paying money out of the public pocket regardless, except now with all these middlemen added that are taking a little off the top, so everyone's getting ripped off way more. But it's good for your friends if you're in a privatizing government and you can award such contracts to your friends at rock bottom rates.
For sure.
Citing market conditions, find some very serious sounding arguments to say these market conditions, we just cannot run this water anymore. We have to find someone to take it off at the absolute minimum rate for maximum profit because then they're going to bring abundance to us.
Yeah, and one of the super fucked up things about that water privatization thing is that in the 90s, the World Bank made water privatization a condition for a lot of the grants and funding and, or I don't know if grants are, what's the...
Aid?
aid that they're offering to developing countries around the world, they made it a condition. They're like, oh, you have to privatize your water. It'll be great. We'll come in, we'll manage it better, or these companies will want to make it real efficient. And the results for those countries end up not being really good.
Another famous industry creep quote, Peter Brabeck Letmath, who is the former chairman of Nestle that sells bottled water. In 2005, I think I first encountered someone saying that he said that water is not a human right. There's all these variations on the quote, like it got its own life.
Right.
He's often not quoted verbatim, but I'll quote him verbatim here for a second. There are two different opinions on the matter. The one opinion, which I think is extreme, is represented by the NGOs, who bang on about declaring water a public right. This means that as a human right, you should have a right to water. That's an extreme solution. The other view says that water is a foodstuff like any other, and like any other foodstuff, it should have a market value.
Yeah, right.
He runs one of the biggest bottled water companies in the world at the time, so it was a big controversy. This has been, I don't know, I've encountered this variation on this quote dozens of times over the years. Following the backlash, I found there's a page on the Nestle website where they're like, no, this guy loves water as a human right.
That's why we were pumping water out of California's aquifers during the 2011 to 2014 drought, because it's such a human right. It's Nestle quote.
Oh, so you support water as a human right, but you don't support industry extracting water for human use? Seems like a contradiction.
So Nestle has a page where they say, we do believe water is a human right.
Yeah, no, they say they're like, our former chairman believes
Right.
Water is a human right.
Oh, good. And wasn't that chairman the guy you said who just took over the world economic?
Yeah, he replaced Klaus
Schwab.
Klaus Schwab as he's the interim head of the World Economic Forum now, which, I mean, look into them, folks. There's something going on over there for sure.
It's not good. It's not all good. Another water-related political issue that's related to property rights is political lobbying, like the EPA and the FDA for like what's safe and what's allowed to be in water. It's like notoriously hard for the EPA especially to start tracking new contaminants or to create guidelines for newly discovered contaminants because of all the political lobbying and the difficulty they have in like putting that stuff through. And another reason that companies like selling bottled water is that the FDA regulations for what you can sell as bottled water are different than the EPA regulations for what you can put into tap water. So it's actually easier to sell bottled water than tap water in terms of the amount of testing and stuff that you have to do on it.
Yeah, that reminds me, there was some story I heard of Fiji ran a marketing campaign that they said it's called Fiji because it's not bottled in Cleveland or something like that. And then as like a PR stunt, the head of the water authority of Cleveland did a comparison test between Fiji and Cleveland water and proved that Cleveland water was cleaner and purer than Fiji bottled water or something like that. Yeah, so the interests of these companies are out of line with the interests of a free humanity, I think. And I mean, like the steelman of your current interim head of the World Economic Forum, Nestle water privatization guy, is that water being something that is considered priceless. I never really heard that as a particular proposal. I'd have to think through of what that meant to make it forbidden to assign any price to water.
Right.
Like a lot of things that are human rights, there are prices assigned to in various circumstances. I don't know if that's good or not. I actually really have to think.
Right. It's like
it's
an accounting mechanism. The people who are all about prices are like, oh, it helps you account for all these different things. And like it does kind of do that, but you can also account for those things more directly most of the time.
I'm open to the possibility that there could be a human rights framework that completely removes prices from things like water and housing and so on. I'm open to that, but it's not a theory I've ever heard before, except as the straw man deranged ramblings of a water privatizing bottled water CEO.
Who's also conflating price at point of service for an individual consumer with like, should the governments and corporations who are consuming mass amounts of water have to price out like, does the municipality have to pay someone to provide the water to people is a different question. Like eliminating price altogether is different than a human right free at point of service for individuals.
Yeah, like the doctors are not enslaved. They get paid by someone, but it's free at point of service. And that's what makes it a good right. But yeah, I guess the kind of steelman of his perspective is that by having a suitably high price on water for how valuable it is, it could be a way to prevent water waste, to create like a financial incentive for people to turn off the tap faster, have shorter showers, and have, industrial agribusiness plug the holes in their irrigation systems that are costing them more money now. And that's kind of like the pattern grid world capitalist utopian framework on this. It's got a few issues, but the main standout issue for me is that water being used for one thing is different than water that's being used for qualitatively something else. So any system that treats water as indistinguishable how the water is being used in terms of how it's being priced, I think that system will just not work, because we live in a deeply unequal society where you could have it be that someone decides they want to pay the $1 billion to waste their money, to waste a bunch of water for no purpose that serves no one on a planet where every living being needs water, and the deprivation of, and so what, what if Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos outbids the rest of humanity on all water? Like, that should just be completely out of the question.
Yeah.
Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, they all got together. They pooled their money. They're going to be 100 millionaires after this. They're buying all water on the planet. And it's up to all the rest of us to put our money together to beat them.
Yeah, and we can't.
If I scrimp and save everything I got and I go to the absolute minimum, I'm not going to win in a bidding war against that, even though my use of water is probably better, because I don't need that much.
Yeah.
Biologically, we both need a relatively small amount.
I hate the way it gets moralized, and like so many environmental issues, they want to turn it back around on individuals and moralize them about it. Like, oh, you took a 17-minute shower instead of an 8-minute shower, you're a monster, or whatever. But like, if we're doing the structural things we need to capture gray water, reuse it, and then when, you poo in the gray water and flush it away, we treat that again, don't let it run back into the ocean, maintain that in a cyclical system.
Yeah, it's like less than 10% gets cycled back, something like that.
We plug up all the holes in our aging infrastructure, so we're not just pumping water out into nowhere. We change industrial use patterns so that, agriculture isn't just pumping all this water back into riverways and stuff. Like, there's so much waste at every level of the water system because it was designed in a frontier time when people were building out this infrastructure thinking the water is boundless and endless and we can just use as much as we want and more of it always comes. Because that's what it seemed like for a while. Everything has been built with that assumption embedded in it, but it's not true. There's like a limited amount of water on the planet. And given, yes, it's a lot. It's like 70% of the Earth's surface. But the amount of fresh water, which is what we need, because desalinization is really energy intensive and we can do it. But if we can avoid it, it would be much better too. Fresh water is a much smaller part of that, and it needs to be stewarded much better than just thinking of it as this endless resource, because it's really not. And yeah, so thinking in terms of like all these big, broad political changes that need to happen, water capture, infrastructure changes, like the difference that you're going to make for extra minutes in the shower every day. I don't want to say it's nothing, because none of this is nothing. It all adds up. But that's not going to, even if we were all good little boys and girls and all took 5-minute showers, just quickly, no enjoyment, just scrub the sweat off and get out again. And we all had the worst shower head you can imagine, just barely trickles out. It's no fun at all. That's not going to be enough to save the freshwater systems. We need deeper changes than that. And most of the changes need to come to industrial process and municipal structure.
Yeah, I think the United Nations is right that when in 2010 they formally declared access to water and sanitation as a universal human right, and we could redesign our global water system in a way that avoids all this unnecessary waste, avoids misaligned incentives where bad actors can take advantage of other people or deprive people of what they need. We have enough drinkable water for everyone, and we have the ability to maintain it on a cycle that keeps everyone hydrated, including not just human use, but the wetlands, rivers, streams, freshwater. When you lose that, you lose biodiversity, and biodiversity is what holds the planet together. Like, you need a variety of different plants, a variety of different animals, And through those relationships with each other, there's like this emergent wholeness to it that is beneficial to all involved. So when you lose freshwater streams and you lose biodiversity and you lose opportunities for nature to thrive in different ways, there's also run-on effects there that are really harmful to human beings beyond just being thirsty. But also, I think most of us are probably lucky enough to have never really, really been that thirsty, but it gets pretty rough. When I was reading for this episode, I was trying to, like, what happens when you fully dehydrate to death?
Yeah.
It's a grotesque thing. You slowly turn into kind of like a beef jerky man, but any beef jerky part of your body dies. So your face is starting to get beef jerky, your fingers are starting to get beef jerky.
It's like a slow spread of jerky death.
Yeah, and then we'll take you out as one of your organs will reach the jerky point of no return. Yeah, exactly.
But they're very central, so I imagine they're not going to be the first thing to dry out.
No,
That'd be like
it's
hands, arms.
It takes some time and it's painful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's an important part of the global water management system. We want to make sure that every human sponge stays as wet as they desire, and no one becomes jerkified. But also, we need to maintain the natural world as well. We need to steward the natural fresh water for life beyond humanity. And even if you don't care about them, their existence is an important underlying feature of your existence. So even if you're a Scrooge, even if you're a curmudgeonly Scrooge when it comes to the natural world, don't let those waterways dry up, because your destiny's intertwined with theirs, actually.
Wow, all this learning about water has got me a little bit bleary-eyed. There's just so much information. Do you want to, I don't know, go to change of scenery? Hey, maybe we could go see Water Genius.
Oh, yeah, our neighbor Water Genius who lives down the street. Yeah, he's a genius when it comes to water. We should see what he thinks.
Yeah, it's not just a name, Water Genius, actual Water Genius. Knock on the door.
Knock.
Hello,
Hey, Water Genius, you home?
Water Genius. It's the wrong boys.
Oh, hey guys. Yeah, thanks for coming by. I'm in the bath. Come through.
Oh, we didn't know.
Yeah, we could come back
your
later
bath time.
if
It's no big deal. We don't want to intrude.
It's no worry, boys. I'm just having a soak, and I'd love to see you. Really, come through.
If you insist, yeah, we'll...
yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it.
Doesn't have to be weird.
Hey, nice.
Nice bathroom.
You must really like to bathe, hey? Oh, yeah, I like to just lay back, relax, have a soak. The water takes some of the gravity off your body. You can kind of float and just relax. So what's up?
Well, we're doing an episode about water.
Oh, finally.
I know people have been requesting. It's a huge thing, but yeah, no, we were looking into like the science, ecology, water politics, a lot of it, a bit of water symbology. And we're just curious, is there anything that you think we might be missing that we should emphasize?
Hydration, boys. Staying hydrated is so important. I'm sure you've already covered, body's mostly made of water, yada, yada. But you got to drink lots of water every day. The water doesn't just hydrate your body, it actually hydrates your individual cells. And dehydration symptoms, they're pretty rough. Fatigue, low energy, decreased cognitive performance, difficulty concentrating, irritability, headaches, cramps. And when it gets really severe, I mean, you can get low blood pressure, rapid breathing, fainting, loss of consciousness. I mean, this water is an all-natural tonic. It's a sacred remedy, honestly. And I think people, generally, you don't drink enough water. Most people who hear your show probably don't drink enough water. So I would emphasize that.
And if I understand right, it's also good to sort of sip your water throughout the day rather than not drink any for 6 hours and then pound 2 liters or something. It'll be more beneficial and you'll pee less of it out right away if you're taking it in slowly.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but if you feel thirsty, drink as much as you want. But yeah, definitely wet your beak, they say, with water, and try to avoid almost anything else you can drink is just total garbage and shit compared to water. So another thing too, just on a health front, swimming is an incredible exercise. And if you think about it, it makes sense because, not human muscles, but muscles in general evolved within the ocean. So, our muscles were land-based beings and have been for, millions of years, but our muscles are really tuned to the environment of the water. So swimming, it uses your whole body. It exercises almost It engages almost all muscle groups in the body. It's low impact, so it doesn't hurt your joints because the water relieves a lot of your body weight. You're doing strength training and cardio at the same time. The coolness of the water and the heat capacity of the water regulates your body temperature, allowing you to exert yourself longer. And it helps build lung capacity because you have to regulate when you're breathing. If you're swimming, putting your head underneath the water and stuff like that. So you combine all these things together, and swimming is just, it's an exceptional form of exercise. And if you swim while well hydrated, it's even better.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, when you're in water, anywhere you move your legs or arms, when you're pushing through water, you have to like move the water out of the way. It's like every direction you move in, you're using your muscles more than if you're moving just through air. So yeah, the fact that it like works out your whole body and yeah, all that makes so much sense. That's great.
I recommend it. You know, a lot of people who are going to be listening to the show probably don't swim enough, and they probably don't drink enough water. And if they do those things, they're going to have really positive impacts. So I guess that's my top line water genius, what I would hope that you guys would share on the show.
Well, thanks, Water Genius. That is incredibly helpful.
Thank you, Water Genius.
That's great. You know, no need to get out of the bath and drip water all over the tile. We'll show ourselves out, but...
You know, and something about you being nude this whole time actually just makes the purity of this message so much more cleansing.
It's so much appreciated, and we'll come back if we have any other questions. So
we're so thankful for you to be our neighbor in our community.
Yeah,
so
part of the vital genius community in Wrongtown. See ya.
Welcome back to another droplet of truth.
Did you know that recent scientific research has indicated that the water cycle may actually go far deeper into the earth than previously thought, and that there could be as much as 4 to 5 times the amount of water that is in all of our oceans combined, trapped deep within the Earth's mantle, up to 1,300 kilometers below the Earth's surface. This water isn't in liquid form, but rather it is actually fused into the rock of the mantle itself. Under certain situations of extreme heat and pressure, water can actually flow into certain types of rock. The pressure breaks the water molecule apart into hydroxyl radicals, OH, and hydrogen atoms, which can then fit themselves in between the molecular lattice of the stone. So when it's stored inside the stone, it's not technically water as we think about it. But if we remove this stone from the heat and pressure, the hydroxyl molecules and the hydrogen atoms will recombine to form water that will literally seep out of the stone, pour out of the stone itself. At the bottom of the ocean, there are subduction zones where the tectonic plates grind against one another and overlap. And this water-infused mineral at the bottom of the ocean can get pushed down into the earth, which can serve as a buffer for the amount of water in the oceans and can then percolate back up through the layers of the Earth's crust to rejoin the water cycle again. So we're still learning a lot about just how deep water is embedded in the environment and ecology of the Earth.
And that was a droplet of truth.
The water system on the planet flows through everything. It flows through the soils, bringing nutrients and minerals. It's like in the food we eat. You grab an apple, it's like moist inside and delicious. There's water flowing through you. It's evaporating in the air. It's coming down as rain. It's in the oceans. It is in the crust of the earth. It is connected to all of the systems that bring life, and it is most of what every living thing is made out of. It's the world in which we live in. We live near giant bodies of water that cover most of the part of the planet, and we're breathing in air that is some percentage of water. That depends on how dry a climate you live in. So we're swimming in water all the time, and we have to take care of the water systems. And in doing so, we're taking care of ourselves and each other, and the broader each other of all plant and animal life and biodiversity.
Yeah, and like got to give credit to water. Like, water has really helped us. Like, we owe water a solid at this point. Like, life evolved in water. The earliest forms of life on Earth, our ancient ancestors, came to exist and thrive in water for millions and millions of years. And it was only after a long process of evolution that certain fish started developing like little leg type things to come a little bit out of water sometimes. And then from that eventually came kind of like proto-amphibians. And from that split off a group of proto-reptiles that are the earliest mammals were like mammal-reptile hybrids. I can't remember the name for them. But someone who really knows their evolutionary history is nodding right now and is like, I know exactly what he's talking about. I think it was the reptiles. They evolved eggs that like simulated seawater outside of the ocean. So they could, the eggs that they would lay on land, like the amphibians, they had to lay their eggs underwater and they were like, the eggs were in the water, but the reptiles could lay their eggs on land. And then so from these proto-reptile mammals, there was this long line of different animals. Eventually you get to us. Some of our cousins went off back to the water, just as
like
a side
dolphins,
note.
whales, things, mammals jumping back in.
Yeah, they came out with us for a while, and in fact, they were us. We were the same thing. And then at a certain
common
point,
ancestors,
at a certain point, they broke off in a way that they started going in the water more, and some of them became fully submerged species to this day who are still our cousins, and we share features with them. It's kind of a surreal thought if you think about it.
Yeah, our womb friends, other mammals who have wombs.
But even humans, like if you look throughout our history, I mean, rivers, oceans, beaches, streams, lakes, this was always important to us. It was always a source of food. It's always a source of ease of transportation. It's easier to travel along a shoreline than through a dense jungle. And when you start looking at the things that really make us human, like the use of tools, they're often found by waterways. Advent of agriculture, the beginning of civilization was always around waterways. Like, every step of the way, and there's been many steps to get here, water's had our back. But a small amount of the human monkeys that we all are, the tailless, hairless, bipedal monkeys that we are, a small group of us has turned rotten, and they're trying to assault water itself, which in my view is kind of like a friend demigod type thing, I guess.
It's like supervillain kind of stuff. It's like the modern day escalation of back in hunter-gatherer times when like that one guy just kept going upriver to shit and everyone's like, no, you're not supposed to do that. We go downriver because water, you're shitting in all of our bathing and
we're
drinking water.
We're supposed to be able to kick the ass of the guy who's shitting upriver. And
we drink from the first part, then we bathe after the part that we drink, and then we shit in the part after we bathe. It just makes sense.
And if someone moves in upstream from you and puts their shitting thing, then you go to war with them.
Yeah.
And you kill them or you integrate them.
Or unless they're far enough away where you can just kind of ignore it and be like, it's fine.
Yeah, it's mixed in at that point. We're not worried about it too much. Yeah.
So the modern day equivalent of that is like these supervillains who are like shitting upriver, but at the same time stealing all the water from the river that they're shitting in to like really increase the concentration. And then, it's a metaphor. We all have to, pull them aside and be like, I don't care if you think it's your right. That's not allowed. We have to manage this better because it's a collective resource that we all rely on. And there's just the one river around here, or there's just the one water system on this planet. So we have to all make this decision together democratically for the best of everybody.
Yeah. So in the same as it is, any time in human history, first you warn them, you try to have an intervention.
Yeah, graduated sanctions.
Exactly. At a certain point, you kick their ass and you run them out of town.
Yeah.
And I've got a pacifist streak, but I think if you take kicking their ass and running them out of the town off the table, it's contrary to the human experience for millions and millions of years. I think it's a horrible mistake. Like, I'd argue, don't go kick their ass right away necessarily. Maybe you can work it out. But just from an evolutionary lens, just thinking of the wild monkeys that we all are, kicking their ass and running them out of town is sometimes necessary.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a reason that in ancient societies, wars broke out over access to riverways. Like one city diverts too much from the river, the people upstream, they'll go to war with them over that. This is like core stuff here. So when somebody is, Lex Luthor supervillaining, I'm going to control all the water and shit in it at the same time with all the pollution, that's what the shit is in this situation. Or sometimes literal shit in agriculture. It's a huge problem. Shitting, like all the animal shit going into waterways. So sometimes it is just literal shit. But yeah, the equivalent of kicking their ass and kicking them out of town in this situation is to prevent them from destroying the water systems of the planet.
The Nestle World Economic Forum guy, he says it's an extreme view that water should be a human right. That view is the extreme view. The other view is the extreme view.
Yeah, the view,
you can pollute
it's not
the world's,
a human right.
You can pollute the world's water systems. You can take from the collective resource of people's water. You can sell it back at a huge markup and a great environmental cost to make yourself rich and to deprive other people from it. That you can draw a line around a portion of land and then Daniel Plainview drink the milkshake of the collective inheritance for profit based on, what the market conditions are at the time. How much money you can charge for it is based on market conditions rather than how much water exists to be sold in such a way, or what are the alternative, more beneficial uses. Like the whole financial instrument around this stuff is fucked up if you want to steward, like probably goes without saying to most of our audience. We said this type of stuff on the show before. But when you start talking about that pattern grid world shit, when you're talking about finite natural resources, it is absolutely off the fucking trail batshit. That is the logic that is like, as a businessman, if I kill everyone on Earth, well, I'll be disadvantaged because they're all going to go to my competitors in the future. Like, no, that doesn't actually make sense. If you can harm other people beyond the internal logic of your little pattern grid world game, then the whole basis makes no sense.
Yeah.
So it's supervillain shit. It is Lex Luthor shit. It is kick their ass and run them out of town shit.
When you're dealing with something this fundamental, this extremely unique, strange substance that flows through everything and is the basis of all life and is deeply intertwined with the history of human society and human evolution,
human mythology
and all of it, we don't have time for that shit. We don't have time for like, oh, well, technically it will be more efficient if we just let the billionaires deplete our waterways. It's like, it has to stop.
The premises of the word efficient there are so, like, if you actually articulated what efficient means in that context, it would be clear that you were talking about some wild ass Lex Luthor destroy the planet shit. It's not efficient in any way to spend through an inheritance as if it's income. It needs to be stewarded. It's in a cycle. It belongs to everyone. We need to have a system that can do that. And I think also, like, I'll just say it. I think these multinationals, these privatizers, these hyper-capitalist, propertarian extremists, they don't recognize what water is. It's not just a food stuff. It is something that is so important and primordial, and like the things that make water unique are fucking fascinating on like a chemical level. Like water is like this little Mickey Mouse structure with an oxygen and two hydrogens hanging off of it. It's got a higher level of surface tension, which means that plants can suck it up more efficiently than if it had more regular level of surface tension. It is an electromagnetic force that holds all of these atoms together, and the way that the patterns of atoms in water behaves is unlike anything else that we know of in the universe. It's also one of the most common simple compounds because hydrogen is like 75% of all known elements in the universe, and oxygen is like third. So hydrogen is first, and then oxygen is third, and they click together really easily. And so it's a really plentiful thing in the universe. But the thing is, you need a narrow band of temperature in order to be able to have liquid water, which we happen to have here on Earth. And water reinforces the temperature of the Earth because it has this high heat capacity.
Yeah. And if you let more carbon into the atmosphere and let the temperature of the Earth increase, the humidity of the Earth can increase. And water is also a greenhouse gas because of its incredible ability to hold heat. But yeah, it's not just a food stuff. It's more fundamental than that. And
it's both slippery and sticky at the same time.
Yeah, it is. Think about two planes of glass with water between it. If you move them sideways, they'll slip really easily. If you try and pry them apart, they're stuck together because it's slippery and sticky.
Yeah, and the unique feeling of water that we recognize as wetness itself is something that is slippery and sticky at the same time. Like that feeling that you already know well, which we consider wetness, is that feeling. There's nothing like that. It's crazy. And then also, weather is regulated by the way that it moves around our world. It's more than a food stuff. It's more on the oxygen side than the hamburger side.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the answer we choose on these questions around water use, water barbarism, or water socialism, it has profound impacts to just like the future of human life. Like this is something that's fundamental to us, and the internal battles that humanity is fighting on the nature of our relationship to each other via contract law. One of the battlefronts of this is over water, and overwhelmingly people do not want to cede this territory over to those freaks that we've ceded so much other shit to. So it's like there's a real strategic, picking up the water fight has a real strategic element to it, I think, because people were mad about this Nestle quote because it is fucked up, and people recognize, there exist a future where I'm thirsty and a bottle of water is $80?
Yeah, I think another reason this is a politically good fight to pick up is that water is one of the few things in our current society that people expect for free or near free, and where that sort of like boomer entitlement that a lot of conservatives have is actually justified and pointing to something that we should all have easy access to. Like, you know, maybe we shouldn't be able to use more of it on our lawns than we use for anything actually useful. But in terms of we should be able to drink water from the tap and have showers and stuff, the boomers are right. Like we're all entitled to that. So I think there's a real coalitional ability there if you make that like they're trying to stop us from getting water. And yeah, I think like water socialism is just a fact of the world in that like there isn't like unlimited amount of water we can just use. There's a store of water that we can borrow from, and we have to collectively manage together. I guess that's kind of true of like all resources, but we're just taking this out. We're just borrowing this for now to use for whatever we're using it for. And we have to make sure that when we're done with it, we're putting it back into the system in a place that benefits the cycle overall. So yeah, the profit model of water just doesn't work with biological, climate, water cycle science. It's based on the idea that water is just a foodstuff. It is just a commodity that can be bought and sold, when it's something that's much more fundamental than that, and something that the only relationship we can have to is one of mediated interaction, where we're taking it out, borrowing it, and giving it back in a way that maintains the cycle in a healthy way.
It's like library socialism. Like water cycles it follows the same logic of borrowing and returning as a library. It's actually almost like libraries are a metaphor for water rather than the other way around.
Books flow more like water in a library system than in a private property ownership system, which kind of stops the flow of books up like dams, and then they get, you know, old and musty. And
this metaphorical door just opened to me, but is the issue with private property that it's too much like ice? And they say, well, if you don't have ice, you got to take gas. And library socialism is saying, no, baby, we can get the right temperature for some,
right in the middle, there's some
liquids.
Water. Yeah. This can really flow around in a healthy way. It'll reach a nice equilibrium, you know?
That's the first sentence of the Library Socialist Manifesto. No, baby, comma, extrapolate further. But I think if we're going to tackle the intertwined water crises, we have to look at a global intervention. Like you can't have water socialism in one country and have it really work. I think you really need to have a global water treaty, stronger than a treaty. You need to have like a global enforcement system that is shared and in public interest according to like the best understanding of our science and stuff. Like it doesn't make sense that because you live in one part of the world, you would have access to water more than someone else. Like even if you get rid of the multinationals drinking the milkshake of all the of all the poor people of the world problem, which is a major problem that should be gotten rid of, then it's like, oh, well, they randomly were born in a place that has a shitload of fresh water. You were randomly born where there's none. So you got to turn to beef jerky till you painfully die. Like that's not In a climate crisis world, that's not going to fly.
Every part of the world, every country is upriver in either a direct sense or a metaphorical sense. At some point, it's a water cycle, right? Like it moves throughout the entire planet. Like that thing they always say about like, you know, every famous person in history, you've probably drank water that was once their pee because of the way that the amount of water that would have flowed through them throughout their lifetime and the way that it spreads throughout the planet. It's like we've all drinking Cleopatra's pee or whatever. It's all connected is my point. And the idea that, yeah, because you live in one country, you're allowed to shit in the river, the global river that flows through the oceans and all the rivers and the water system as much as you want. It just doesn't make sense. So yeah, there needs to be a global recognition of this resource and that it needs to be managed, or we need to instill graduated sanctions on the people who refuse to manage the parts of it that are causing problems for everyone. And now it is time for another droplet of truth.
Because hydrogen is the most common element in the universe, and oxygen is the third most common element in the universe, water is one of the most common types of molecules in the universe. And in 2011, teams of astronomers discovered the largest and farthest reservoir of water ever detected in the universe. The water is equivalent to 140 trillion times all of the water in the world's oceans, more than 12 billion light years away. While liquid water can only exist in a specific band of temperatures, the majority of water in the universe is ice. And where water is found elsewhere in our solar system, off of Earth, it's only been found in the form of ice. So while water is actually pretty common in the universe as far as we can tell, it is extremely rare to have a planet like Earth that is heated correctly to the right band to have liquid water in a way that can create a stable climate.
And that was another droplet of truth. We now go to a street water preacher.
Water is God, folks. Here, take the pamphlet. Water is God.
No, thank
It's
you.
a great enabler of life. It's a regulator of heat. Water is one oxygen with two little hydrogens hanging off of it, folks. Held together by electromagnetic force, they flow together in great ever-breaking chains to create fluid dynamics with a high degree of stickiness. They stick to each other, they stick to anything, and it's where life comes from. It is God. Our planet would not exist without water. Our life would not exist without water. Sir, have you accepted water as the one true God in your life?
No, I haven't actually, but what you're saying there is quite interesting. I've actually been thinking about changing religions. Maybe I'll take one of these pamphlets.
I've seen it myself, brother. I've been to the water dimension. I've been there for 10,000 years, studied, soaked, dipped,
Really?
dived,
10,000?
dunked.
Oh, yes, it says here, sprinkle the water fairy. Wow.
Sprinkles real. Come down with me to my cult compound. We've got waterfalls, fountains, as much water as you can drink, bathing pools.
I could use a nice little swim. Why not? What could go wrong?
You'll never regret it, my friend.
Famous last words. As soon as we got to the compound, I felt that something was off. There were people living in pools of water, never coming out, constantly pruned. I started to be forced to drink excessive amounts of water. When we spoke up, they sprayed us with hoses as a first type of punishment, and then came the dehydration rooms and the waterboarding. Back and forth, back and forth. We were used for experiments. They were trying to discover a way for humans to breathe underwater, to evolve back into the oceans. It wasn't until I heard of the plans for what they called the breaking of the dam, where in order to truly be with the water god that they all worshipped, that we all worshipped, each and every cult member was to begin drinking water and not stop until they were dead.
It's so awful.
That's right, a mass cult suicide. And it was at that moment that something clicked and I ran out of there and I escaped, but so many good people didn't. And that's why I say water worship is a menace.
Brave words earlier today from a survivor of the water cult mass suicide. Their cult leader claiming that he had spent 10,000 years in the water dimension at the behest of Sprinkle, the water fairy, had deadly consequences with 634 victims.
Sprinkle the water fairy is not real, and these water lunatics are going to cause the complete collapse of society if nothing is to be done about it. This just in, the president has announced that something is going to be done about it. Details to be announced at a press conference starting right now.
Hello, everyone. Wish I was here under happier circumstances, but the water cult mass casualty tragedy is going to be remembered for generations. Now, water is a good thing. I drink water myself, but too much of a good thing can be harmful. Today I'm announcing a suite of packages to tackle the threat of clean, pristine, running tap water for all. Free running tap water is dangerous. And to switch to a hydration system mediated through private corporations who will sell us bottled water in safe doses to make sure that people don't die from water cultism, water poisoning. It's too dangerous. People can't be trusted, so we're just making that all illegal, and we're also taking public water companies and we're putting them into private hands to look for efficiencies. And also, just to cut you off before you ask any questions, is this about my meetings with the various foodstuff companies that sell bottled water? No. Is it related to the campaign donations they gave me? No. Is it related to my relationships with them, including personal relationships? No. Okay, this is about public safety. And thank you. I am the president. Goodbye.
And so the president plunged Wrongtopia into decades of increasing prices on water, people going thirsty, people spending 30% of their income on water, water speculation going through the roof, water stocks going through the roof, but people getting thirstier and thirstier and thirstier.
The Wrongtown Supreme Court ruled that all water in existence, including the water inside our own bodies and cells, belong to Nestle Corporation.
And people had to pay a fee to license their body's water from Nestle for their lifetime, or they weren't allowed to keep it.
The Nestle men would come by with their great dehydrating machine and take every last little drop, every molecule, turning you into jerky, all in the name of public safety, to protect you from your desire to drink so much water that you die out of a cult-like mania for water.
It was truly, truly so over for society. But within that moment of it being so over, there started to be glimmers of it being so back. Because when people saw their loved ones turn to jerky because they couldn't afford to pay the Nestle Corporation for their body's own water, they began to whisper to one another that something better might be possible.
When people started to recognize that they were being exploited and that water was necessary, that water was part of them, that they're part of a world that is reliant on water and that shouldn't be fenced and sold off by any private group, they came together and they started to fight back for a global blue socialism, a socialism of water, a socialism that used the water cycle as a parent metaphor for the logic of a lending library. And they worked towards an ecological society. And it was a conflict and it took effort and it was hard. But soon they were able to throw off their shackles and fight back and win that society. And they did.
They managed to build a perfect water utopia from the ground up. Their entire society was integrated with the global water systems in ways that contributed and enhanced the flow of water around the globe rather than trying to dam it up, pull it out of the ground, pollute it, and put it back into the ocean. It was an entire rethink of the infrastructure of water within cities, where rainwater goes and how it's drained, using gray water for toilets and drinking water recaptured from wastewater. A truly beautiful, cyclical water society where people understood that the water within their bodies, the water they drank, the water they peed out, was all part of the great pool, and that we were just borrowing it for our lifetime being good stewards of it, returning it when we die.
And they all had a big, nice sip of water after that. Not too much mineral water, and they sipped it, and it was good. The end.
So yeah, that's water.
That's water.
It's a big topic.
There's a lot of winding rivers and tributaries on this topic. There's a lot of batches of collections of H2O molecules in different shapes, which, from my understanding, water is made up out of. But I don't think those individual clumps, which, mind you, may only last for a fraction of a second at any given time, have a specific name. So unfortunately, my metaphor dies there. And the episode is over on that note.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have the language to describe the beauty of the natural world around you.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the job of a poet.
It's something you can only approximate.
What would you call those if you had to be our nature's poet for 1 second?
I don't know. I missed something in what you said. I don't know what you said.
I'm not even going to bother naming them. Sorry, go on.
Thank you for listening, everybody. This has been the Seriously Wrong podcast. And yeah, drink your water. Continue to exist as mostly water.
Yep.
And take care of the water around you to the best of your ability.
Go swimming.
Yeah,
it's good for you.
Yeah, it's good for you, for sure.
Wage war on the international ruling class in your own little way.
Yeah, if we all just wage the tiniest little bit of war on the ruling class, then like many thousands of droplets, or millions, I guess, hundreds of millions of droplets of water, we can form a river. You know, something that seems like nothing, a droplet of water, maybe nothing on its own, but when it's a river, it's actually extremely dangerous, can throw you up against the rocks and sweep you away and,
kick your ass and throw you out of town.
Exactly. So we need that river, folks. Yeah, I lost my point, but thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Go drink that water. Go drink it right now. You got to drink more. You know what they say. I do know that when I drink more water, I feel like much better.
Yeah.
In life, like existentially, sharper, you name it. It's a nootropic. Water is a nootropic.
It is. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. If you got brain fog, I'm not saying it's going to cure all kinds of brain fog, obviously, because there's many causes of that, but drinking water's never hurt, and it's only made it better.
It's also an endurance supplement. It's also a digestive
aid and crucial component.
Yeah.
And it also helps the sponge stay nice and moist.
Yeah.
Which we all love because we are all sponges.
I don't want a single one of my goddamn cells turn into beef jerky for even a second. And if that means I got to go to the washroom more to pee, I'm willing to take that risk. Because if your cell turns to beef jerky, this can happen. This is severe dehydration. Turn some of your cells to jerky and they're damaged. So keep sipping on that agua, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya.